Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and today I am so excited to bring on my guest. She's probably one of my favorite people in the universe, Dr. Carrie Johansson. We've known each other for probably close to 3 years now, I think, right? About 3 years now. And she wrote one of my favorite books, and I don't really read a lot, but this book is so easy to read. And we're going to talk about a lot of cool things today. So before we start, click like, share, subscribe, review, share, subscribe. Those are huge. Review at the end. I'm probably going to ask you to do that again at the end, just because I probably will. So without further ado, let's bring on Dr. Carrie. Hey.
Hi, everybody. Iris, it's so fun to be back with you and all of your folks.
I know, you too. And I'm sorry we've had, we're back on Riverside today. Usually we record on StreamYard, but they were having an issue. And it's really weird because it seems like the past, like since January, every 3 episodes we have some kind of a technical difficulty or something. So
I do think it's a little bit ironic because we're supposed to talk today about resilience. And so our ability to bounce back from difficulties, how generous of the universe to give us a little fodder for our discussion today.
There you go. And as always, the universe, I think, has a great sense of humor. So,
yeah.
So there you go. So how have you been?
Things are good, and we have a very exciting change. So you know that I am a psychologist in long-term private practice, specializes in treating anxiety and trauma. And one of the things, and I think you and I have talked about this, and maybe even on one of our old podcasts, I want to reach more people at a time because we have such good information. Why not reach more people? And so one of the exciting developments in my life is that I've partnered with this international company called the Resilience Institute. And now I'm getting to bring trainings to corporate and to teams and nonprofits. And it's all about how to build more mental flexibility, well-being, resilience, grit, you name it. How do we help our teams function and flourish and perform better instead of just helping individuals? So I'm super excited about that and super happy to talk to you about it today.
That is so awesome. And I love that, you, first off, the resilience piece is perfect, but I love that you get to help teams and that you get to share what you do with like a more steady and wider audience and client base, because I think that just in general, what you do is huge. So to be, working on the resilience piece, I think especially now, I think.
And one of the coolest things about this is it's a move that's aligned with my values, right? So we've talked about this in the past where you want to understand what's important to you and then link it to action and then go out and do it, right? Like, so don't just think about what's important to you, think about what you would do and then nothing, right? Like we actually want to get into that action phase of things. But I feel like this type of work just builds on that concept of psychological flexibility that you and I have talked about. And we're working with discomfort tolerance and then adding in resilience. So it's psychological flexibility. Let's get real about what's really happening. Discomfort tolerance. Some of what's happening I don't like. Okay. Right. And then the resilience piece is being able to work with those two things and then bounce forward, bounce out of the difficulty into really flourishing, into flow state, into enjoying your life. Because you and I've talked about this. Like, I think that's the point. If you're not enjoying your life, then, oh my gosh, let's figure out how to help you move towards that.
Yeah. And I think that, the bouncing forward, I think that's the whole point, is when we're in this, I think I was there like in the beginning of the year, the end of last year, beginning of this year. It was probably one of the toughest periods that the business had.
Okay.
And it was scary there for a while. I was like,
Yep.
shit, what are we going to do? I have to pay people. I have to do things right. People do work. They expect to get paid. But if people aren't paying me, then I can't
It
pay
makes
people.
it really hard.
And I remember that I was going, okay. It's going to pass. Things are going to work out. And I think that if I would have let myself get stuck in the mire and the lack and all of the crap, I think I'd still be there. But I think it's all mindset. And for me, I was like, okay, yes, this sucks. Yes, I have people banging on my door for money. I know I have, a couple of things coming up. Are they going to happen? I'm going to say yes. I'm just going to think positive about everything. And I'm going to, and by March, everything turned around.
And my guess is it wasn't just, And my guess is it wasn't just what you were thinking about, right? Like it's mindset plus action is really the
100%.
Right? So it wasn't just I have to, right? I love it when we put all this stress on ourselves about what we have to or can't do or must do. Any of those words are actually a really good indicator that you're probably walking down a path of psychological rigidity instead of a path of psychological flexibility. But that notion of what's really going on? Oh, okay. I owe people money. Business is slow and folks aren't paying me. Identify the problem, right? And get clear and don't avoid the problem. Really get clear.
And what can I do about it? How do I fix? Yeah. How do I?
And then not instead just how do I feel about it, but what do I want to do with that? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that the beauty of it is I get to make that decision, right? Because I get to decide, am I going to sit here and freak out? Or am I going to do what I always do? And that's figure it out and move forward. And also trust that the universe isn't going to let me drown. Because I have big faith in that. So I think between taking steps, right? So taking action, trusting that, things are going to work out, because I am not meant to fail. I know that. And I truly believe that. And I have a pretty decent support system. So I was able to reach out to a couple of people to kind of, help get through. And I figured it out. And it was scary. And when I came out on the other side of it, it was kind of like, I always say you have to, in order to get through it, you have to go through it. Right. So I was on the other side and I was like, you can stay there for a while. I don't need to see that for a really long time, if ever again. So what can I do to make sure that doesn't happen like that again, that badly?
Right.
Part of it was I didn't plan.
A friend of mine calls this not taking the seminar twice. So he likes to sort of gently, it's a gentle, sort of way of holding things loosely, which I think is wonderful. But it's this notion of so you went through a seminar. I bet you don't want to attend that seminar twice or pay that tuition twice. And that's where, again, being willing to look at what really happened without all of the accompanying kind of mental garbage that I think we're selling in the self-help industry, which I think is doing harm to people instead of good, which is this idea that you can manifest a problem-free life. And the answer is that's not what's on board with life, right? What's on board with life is interesting adventures and unexpected happenings, and sometimes things being boring, and sometimes things being joyful, and sometimes people behaving like real pieces of work, right? Like, and all of that beautiful mixture is what life is. And so this idea, I've seen some folks who they feel like they're failing somehow because they haven't manifested a problem-free life, right? They have this notion that they're doing it wrong.
But I don't think it's possible. I think life is filled with...
It isn't.
Right? That's what makes it life, like the ups, the downs, the in-betweens, the everything. And I think that it's going back to your resilience. It's how you respond to these. It's like you can't react. You have to respond. And you also have to take ownership. And for me, it was, I did not plan well. Like I knew... Yeah. And I didn't realize it until I realized that. I was like, oh, you jackass. You knew in November that the pipeline was kind of tight.
Skinny.
So, So skinny. So why didn't, you should have done A, B, C, D instead of D, E, F, G. And for me, it was a really good opportunity to take ownership of what happened. And I honestly felt stronger for it after, because it was like, yeah, that sucked, but it wasn't like life happened. I mean, part of it was life happened because a couple of things that were supposed to happen fell through because of the uncertainty of the market and stuff like that. So there were like a couple of things that I was really counting on that didn't happen. And I was like, oh,
turn out.
But that made me realize that, if the money ain't there, don't do the thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I did the thing thinking that the money was going to be there. And it was like, oh, okay, we're not going to do that again.
But now you have a title for this seminar, right? Now you have a title. You have a title and the course curriculum for this seminar. And now I bet the next time. Right. And you even have the conclusion from the seminar because you passed the test. And now you don't have to take that again.
No, because, it's like, and my wife always is like, don't spend what you don't have. I'm like, yeah, I don't do that. I did. And so that was like one of the things. But also the other lesson was, and I think that, to me, they're not mistakes if you learn, right? So it's a lesson. I am responsible for paying people, and people are depending on that money to eat and to do other, you know what I mean? Like they need that money. So they're expecting that from me. So I do have a responsibility to be more responsible and more cognizant of what I'm doing. And I didn't really have that before. So it added like this other layer to, okay, we're going to be a little bit more conservative. We're going to be a little bit more aware of what's coming down the pike.
And I think this is also one of the coolest parts about resilience is bouncing back is one thing. But one of the things we don't talk about with resilience is often when we bounce back, we end up a level up, right? Because we've identified the seminar, because we've identified the problem, because we've said, how did I behave my way into this particular scenario? And what did I do to get my way out of it? And what was just luck? And what was bad luck, right? Like the deal fell through. Okay, wasn't expecting that. And so now what are my options? What are my options to respond?
And it wasn't that it fell through, it
delayed.
Moved. It delayed, yes. It delayed by 4 months.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But it's that notion of, when we are resilient, we aren't just bouncing back, and it isn't a Pollyanna thing. It's not I bounced back and now everything's wonderful. It's more like, I bounced back and here's how I prepare for that particular storm if it was ever to come back. But it ends up oftentimes giving you a level up or a leg up.
Yeah, I think people downplay resilience. I really do. I don't think that embrace the power that it is, because that is it's a power, and it's a superpower. Because if you can be resilient, first off, if you can own your shit, that's huge. For me, I've grown so much from that, right? So that was like one thing. But I think just being resilient, and my whole life I've always, I'm like the cat, right? You jump out of the tree, you land on your feet, and you just get up and walk away. And so I've always had that. But I think that there's a point where when you are resilient, you're almost more apt to take risks because you're going to land on your feet. And that might not be the smartest thing. I'm just saying.
Well, and I do think it's important to understand, because I think sometimes when we talk about doing well or bouncing back or something like that, I think sometimes there's people who are like, well, that must be nice for you because you have this, that, or that, this, that, or the other
yes.
resource. And I don't have that. Yeah. And so I couldn't possibly do it. Right. And the interesting thing is resilience is actually applicable across a wide range of resources. And sometimes what's resilient for one person is just practical for somebody else. But the general gist of resilience, the thing that I'm wanting to bring to people, because I really do believe and try to work personally, that notion of like, how is your life going? What are you enjoying in your life? Is it aligned with your values? Are you able to flex with life's inevitable ups and downs, right? Without being a total jerk to yourself when things are down, which sometimes I struggle with, right? Like things are down and I'm like, I could have done this, right? And I get so rigid. That's a piece of why I teach this stuff, is that I use this stuff. And so, especially if you're one of those folks who feels a little bit like the underdog, your job with resilience is then to make it a little smaller. Right? Your bounce doesn't have to be to the moon and back. Your bounce can be to tomorrow and back. And then once you've got tomorrow and back a couple of times under your belt, then you can make it 3 days forward and then back. Right? And so there isn't this pressure, like resilience, again, isn't one of these things that we're supposed to optimize. It's something that we're supposed to practice. And and again, my invitation to folks is like practice on a regular basis and find some small joys that don't cost a lot of money, that don't take a ton of effort. It can be something as small as making a nice cup of tea. It could be going to a park that is free. It could be like the other day I was on vacation and I had read my book and I wanted another book. And I'm looking, and we're sort of in a small town and we're looking, and the small town bookstore is actually closing, which is a whole different tragedy for a different time. But the thing that I found, which I thought was so fun, and this goes back to a childhood joy. So one of the ways that sometimes we can help boost resilience is remember what used to give us a bounce when we were a kid. And probably the bounciest thing that would happen to me when I was a kid, besides riding horses, which anytime I could do that, oh my gosh, right? Like that was amazing. But the other really bouncy thing was books. And the Scholastic Book Fair was amazing. And I would like do chores and save my money and go to the book fair and get myself a book, right? And I found in this little small town a bookmobile. Iris, it was like a Scholastic Book Fair for grownups. I was in heaven. And it was totally free, which was amazing. And I got to go into this little converted camper, and you walk in and the whole camper is books. And it was incredible. And it was so much fun. And it gave me the big bounce for not too much effort. And it was literally free. Right. So sometimes like resilience. Nice. But resilience doesn't have to be fancy. I think sometimes when people see folks who are doing well, it's like, oh, well, it's easy for them to be resilient because they have tons of resources, or they have lots of money, or they have lots of support. And the answer is that there's a wide continuum of activities that can help you bounce back. And one of them is go back and think about what made you happy in childhood. And can you replicate that even a little bit as an adult? right? And I got to do that the other day, and it's just been delighting me ever since. And the book was actually interesting and fun, and I was glad that I got it. So, yeah.
Well, and it's like looking for those little things. I mean, I think that, you know, when I was going through my stuff, you know, I mean, I was sleeping till I had no meetings. I was sleeping till 11, 12, 1, you know, like I was, and then I was like, I think this is depression. I'm not tired. I'm sleeping. I need to not be sleeping till, you know, and the dogs are like, you're supposed to feed us at 8. And it's like fucking 1:00 in the afternoon. What are you doing? And then I started going, oh, I really need to. Yeah. So that, it was like the last day that I slept in that long. Piper, who had zero sense of personal space, started, you know, licking my face, and I was like, okay, give me 5 minutes. And she turned around and she just did like a body flop on my head. And I was like, okay,
Mom.
And then I looked at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, it's like I should have fed them 5 hours ago. And then it was like, I have things that I'm responsible for, like feeding my kids, because they're my kids, right? So it was like, I can't be doing this. So the next day I made sure that I was up by 7:45. Or the alarm went off by 7:45, and I fed them by 9, which was great. It was like 4 hours. And then I just started getting back into the, okay, you may not have any meetings, but you cannot get out of that routine, right? So get back into the routine of getting up. And what I found was when I got back into the routine, calls started happening.
Yes.
And my calendar went from
action
100%. And my calendar went from blank to like full. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and that was like another thing, right? It was like, if I would have continued to be in bed till 1:00, right? I probably, that wouldn't have happened. But because I was up and I was doing things, I was taking action to change, the situation. And I knew that a couple of things were coming in later, but I needed stuff now. So I needed to really stop, you know, licking my wounds and just get up and do something. And I think that part of resilience is really, it's important to have. Like you can't, not that you can't, I'm not going to say that, because some people, it's hard to get out of that. But I think that a survival mode kicks in.
Yes.
And for some people, I would say a lot of people, but I would say for some people. And when that kicks in, they can take whatever action that they need to. But there are the people that, you're right, they look around and they're like, oh yeah, of course you can bounce back because you have this resource. Right. There was no resource. No. I had a friend of mine who, you know, I told her what happened and she's like, well, you always bounce back. And I was like, I wasn't sure about this one.
Yeah.
You know, why didn't you reach out? Why didn't I reach out? Because people lean on me. I don't lean on people.
And also, I think this brings up one of the things that we talk about through the Resilience Institute is we talk about the resilience spiral. And as a whole, there's a bunch of different sections to it. But one of the things that you were describing is at the bottom of the spiral, it's described as collapse, right? The top of the spiral, where we all want to aspire to, that's flow, right? Like top of the spiral, that's fun. We all want that. But the bottom of the spiral is collapsing. And that collapse, sleep is actually one of the best indicators about how we're doing. One of the things I talk a ton about in my practice is that the building blocks of mental health are surprisingly physical. And one of the first things that I ask people about is, how's your sleep? How's your movement? How's your nutrition? And if any of those three are off, and particularly if they're off systematically, then that's actually like nature's warning bells, right? Or alarm sign that you're moving down the resilience spiral, right? And when you're at the bottom of the spiral, it looks a lot like what you just described. Holy cow, you missed feeding your dogs by 5 hours. Dude, you love your dogs.
Dude, that'd be like you not feeding Stevie.
Do anything for them. right?
Anything.
Like anything for them.
Yeah.
So that means like, that's what collapse looks like for you.
They're looking at me now right now.
They're nodding their
Looking
heads.
through the gate.
Right?
They're like, you're not going to do that again. Sorry, go ahead.
But what does collapse look for you, right? Like, and does collapse look differently for someone else? But generally, if you just do an assessment, right? Like, and just check in, what are the red flags? What are the warning signs for you? How's sleep? How's exercise? How's nutrition? I know some folks who, one of the things, it was so funny. One of my clients came in the other day and says, your nagging finally paid off. And I'm like, nagging? Me? Never. Right. And I was like,
persistence.
On what
persistence.
And then I was like, on what topic? And they're like, I finally started eating 3 times a day again. Right. Because they just weren't hungry, but their weren't hungry was a lot like you're oversleeping. It was an indication of collapse. They were systematically not taking care of their basic needs. Right?
And for me, I forget to eat, and it's not like a collapse thing. It's
and that just might be a habit.
Yeah, it's like I sit here and I work. So I bought a an under the desk
little fridge
treadmill. No, treadmill. Because
Fun.
I sit so much. Yeah. I'll send it. I sit so much that I forget to get up. And I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, I got up and my legs and my ankles were swollen.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, that's not good.
Okay.
And I went to I called my doctor and went my doctor couldn't see me. So I had to go see the doctor at the hospital. It wasn't like a hospital visit, but it was like a, hospital visit. And so they're like, well, everything looks fine. There's no blood clots or anything, but you need to be moving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's really hard to move when this is what I do. And do you know Hannah Abad?
Who's that?
So she's a dame.
Awesome.
And
Hannah from Boston?
No, that's Hannah McKittrick.
Okay, got
Hannah
it.
Abad I think she's in Austin. So
okay.
And
anyway, sorry guys, we're off here.
We belong to you've heard me talk about the dames, like a million times. So, but so Hannah is, and whenever we get on a call, she's walking. And I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. And she's like, oh yeah, you should totally get it. It's called Walking Pad, and they have like different levels or whatever. So of course hers was sold out, so I had to get the next one up. But because I knew that it wasn't a want, it was really a need, because I need to be moving, and I can't move outside with the dogs for 45 minutes or an hour or 2 hours during the workday, because that's the workday. So I get this thing. It came today. And I'm like, I'm doing this thing, and I'm, and I'm walking and I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm like laughing, and I'm going, okay, I get to do this. And what I started doing was, instead of saying I have to do things, I say I get to do things. Yep. Mindset shift completely changes
Huge
it.
Mindset shift.
Oh my God. And so, and now they're looking at me because I'm in here walking. And they're like, why aren't you outside walking with us? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's like, because I can't. And I got off track of what we were talking about. And I don't even know how I got off track. But I think just like, with the eating, with the not, with sitting here and not eating until I'm sitting, which is why I grabbed the orange right before we started. Because I was like,
wait
I'm feeling a little lightheaded. Oh, I haven't eaten since 10.
Yeah. And so
and
to check in with yourself, it's there's no resistance. It's not actually a problem. It's a problem habit.
Yes.
So the sleep that you described, that was a problem. And that was a big red flag, right? Mm-hmm. That was a red flag about a crash. The not eating is a habit that's actually symptomatic of just not systematically taking great care of yourself. And so you're going to address that. That's awesome. So, I would encourage our listeners to slow down and take a look at their lives. Where are they behaving in ways that actually really help move them forward? Do they have any big red flag behaviors that they want to address and get some help with, either helping themselves or asking someone else for help? And then where are their habits, right? And what habits do they have that are pretty productive? And what habits do they have that are pretty not productive? And this is an ongoing assessment. So again, resilience is not a destination. It is a process. And the process includes taking a look. How are things, doing that assessment of how are things going in your world? What's working? What isn't working so well? How are you contributing to that? And then how's your external environment contributing to that? And then from there, take a look at those building blocks. How's my sleep? How's my exercise? How's my nutrition? Next level up, how are my connections? Am I doing meaningful work? Right? And so that baseline, right? If you imagine that we're building a house, the bottom slab is sleep, exercise, and nutrition. The first floor are your connections. Then we have meaningful work. Then we have, like we're actually designed for survival, not enlightenment. But, you can keep going up and up. Are you doing mindfulness work? All of those sorts of things. Are you giving back in your community?
That's huge. Mindfulness is huge.
Right? So there's all of these different things that make a big difference in terms of how we function in the world. And we have great research that documents what makes a difference. But it's interesting because oftentimes our healthiest habits are the first things that go out the window, right? If you're too busy at work, what's the thing everybody skips? Their workout.
Right.
Right? Or if they don't skip their workout, then they go to bed too late. And so it's interesting because we'll often abandon our healthiest habits, but that's actually the way that we become more resilient, is to leave those in play, especially when more stress comes on our plates. Even if you shrink it a little bit.
Yeah. And I wonder if because I look at I just put your book on top of my little walking pad, but, I look at that and I wonder, had I had the walking pad and feel free to sponsor me, when I was going through that stuff, right?
Right.
Would I?
Maybe you wouldn't have gone so far down the spiral. Right.
Because I would have had that, because I'm trying to make this a habit. So I got it today. And it's a little big. It says under the desk, but it's like 70 pounds. So it's, you fold it and it has like little wheels, but there's no handle. So, anyway, that's another story. But what I'm going to try to do is every morning I'm going to, come in, sit for an hour, do what I need to do, and then move the chair over there. And this, this is like a rising desk because here I go, I'm disappearing, so I can use it, and walk and work and do the stuff. I have like a wireless keyboard that I haven't been using because I've been sitting, but I also realize I've been sitting and bending over.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of unhealthy.
May I give you a pro tip?
100%.
So anytime you're starting a new habit, first of all, if you can take out your phone, you can even do it right now, right? Like, so if one of your listeners is like, oh, I should do this, right? Okay. I should do this new habit, insert whatever the new habit is, take out your phone and set an alarm for tomorrow when you're going to do it.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that then you have an alarm that goes off.
Now I have to look at my calendar. Okay. So tomorrow's Friday. Holy crap. Where did this week go? Okay.
I know.
So so I can. What?
It's mid-June. It's ridiculous.
Which is
Time
insane.
Is flying.
But it's good. Okay. So I can actually do this because I have 10:15. So I'll be talking to Lindsay, who's redoing my copy on my website. And I'll be walking while I'm talking to her. I set the alarm.
And so you set the alarm.
It's true. And if you do it 7 times, right, it becomes a habit. Weekends, I don't know.
It's actually closer to 30. Seven's like a bite-sized snack. So our brains are designed for efficiency, and efficiency is defined by our brains as something that you did last time and it didn't kill you, right? This is why smoking cessation ads don't work very well. Because yes, maybe 30 years in the future, smoking's going to kill you, but it didn't kill you yesterday and it didn't kill you 12 minutes ago. So why not light up again, right? This is our brain's bar for efficiency is very, very low. So you set the alarm, and then when the alarm goes off tomorrow, your job is to actually do it, not to delay it, right? And then at the end of the activity, your job is to check in. When's the next time you're committing to doing it? And maybe it's Monday, and set that alarm. And then for bonus points, so not just setting the intention and doing it, but for bonus points, pick somebody, and for the purposes of this, if you'd like to use me for the next month, you're welcome to. Shoot me a text that just says 20 minutes on the treadmill today, and you'll get a nice thumbs up from me, right? And that will then give you both accountability and encouragement.
I love that because, yeah. And it needs to be more than 20 minutes. Like it needs to be multiple times during the day because I can sit down. So like yesterday, right? I told you I had 3 podcasts back to back and then I had to do video. I made sure that I got up to walk around because I knew if I sat there for like 9 hours, it would have been horrible for me. So what I need to do is like every couple of hours, get up and walk. And even if I'm having a meeting, because Kim does it during, not Kim, Hannah does it during the meetings, right? So what the hell? If it's somebody that I know, I'm just going to walk.
But also with starting a new habit, start at a level that you feel like you can really do and really take care of, and then build from there. So if you feel like you can do this 3 times a day, set your alarm 3 times a day, go for it. But if you feel like, hey, going from 0 to 1 time a day is pretty cool, and I'm going to do that for a couple of weeks and then add in twice a day, go for it. Right? But start your habit at the smallest possible level so that you actually do it instead of just think about doing it and then get off track, as soon as it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. That's a good idea because then you're over
promising, and we tend to under deliver.
Yes, to yourself. Yeah. And I don't over promise and under deliver to anybody. So I'm not going to do it to myself. But we talk about resilience, and I have to bring this out just because this is like my favorite thing in the world. And the last time that we were on, I couldn't find this book. Go, like run to Amazon and get this. And I'm just going to tell you why in a minute, but I couldn't find the upgrade to a bigger stove. I couldn't find this last time that you were on. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And my wife had taken it to work. And I'm like, where's my book? And she's, well, I have it here. And I'm like, well, I kind of want it home. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm using it. And the beauty of this book, see, it says self-help on the go, is that, come on, focus. This thing is not focusing. Anyway, it is literally self-help on the go. You do not have to read this cover to cover. You read it when something is happening. And it could be calm your nerves, lighten up, enhance relationships, de-stress. It's like you read it as you need it. Read it as you need it. I like that.
And you turn, you turn to the chapter that describes the problem you're having. Struggling with anxiety, that's chapter 1. We also have chapters on stress and communication and relationships. And open it up and try something out. And if that doesn't work, try out one of the other 10 tips in the chapter. So I still love that you and your wife made over the book. And I do promise I'll send you an extra copy.
I know. I will send you my address. That's my fault. I forgot to send you my address. And I think it was funny because the last time you were on, I think was the last time we spoke. And it was like, well, no, it was because we spoke after that. But at that time, I was like, okay, I have to send you my address. And what I find is that if I don't do something, and actually, I'm gonna, and I know what it was. Your phone wasn't in my phone, which didn't make sense because I thought that I had your phone number in my phone.
But this is an awesome thing to think about, right? Like going back to the topic is notice when there's a small obstacle that's tripping you up, right? Something as small as I went to send an email the other day and I have this person's email in my Outlook on my computer, but it didn't populate on my phone. But I was on my phone and then I didn't send the email, right? But that little tiny obstacle actually ended up tripping up a process of getting a communication out. For you and I, you didn't get a communication to me because you're missing my phone number. So we'll chat about this offline.
Which I thought I had, but it was just weird because I was like, I know I had it. And then today I was going to text you and it was like, it's not in there to tell you that we were having
noticing
issues.
Right? Like noticing those small obstacles. And as quickly as you can clean up those small obstacles, it just makes life go a little smoother. And when life goes a little smoother, then you actually need to draw on your resilience resources less. So I think that's one of the things too with resilience is it isn't something that you trot out to solve big fancy problems. You actually use it in small ways to pave the way more smoothly, more often.
You landed in the right place. You totally did because you are so perfect for that role because it's like, I think about the many conversations that we've had. And you've helped me look at things different politically, not from a different
change
political
your mind
stance. No, but from a human, a human perspective, because we all, something hit me a few weeks ago and I was like, that was like a you thing because I was having a conversation with one of my clients who is a Republican. And, I would normally not work with a Republican because I would think MAGA and all the other stuff. But he and I had this amazing conversation. He was in my car for 5 hours. And we found, I know, right? He was like, you sure we're not going to be dead by the end of this? I'm like, we'll be good. We're good because we can converse. Yeah. We find common ground and we have more in common than not. Right.
And that is true across the country, despite what we are being told about each other. Yep.
100%. And I think that the issue is that people are afraid. So we're afraid of MAGA. MAGA is afraid of us. But if we bring it down to a human level, right? And you need to be able to take the judgment out on both sides. And you need to be able to take the hate out. And I don't hate anybody. But that thing that makes you uncomfortable, if you can have a conversation about the things that matter to you without putting judgment on somebody else, without talking about what somebody else is doing, we would be so strong. Because when I have these conversations now, right, it's not like, oh my God, well, I don't approve of who you're married to. I don't really care about that. That's none of your business. What is, what I'm concerned about is what's your human experience? How do you move around in the world and how do we move the same? Because that's where we're going to find our commonality.
Yep.
I think.
It was fascinating. I went to a very small event that was the anniversary of the Apollo landing on the moon, or one of the Apollo missions or something like that. And my ignorance here is actually a part of the story. So I went to this event. There were probably only 85 people at this whole event, right? And I was my husband's plus one. He's in the aerospace industry. And some of the original astronauts from the Apollo mission were there and were the speakers for the night, right? So I walk in and I get introduced to this guy, and his name's Fred. And he's a nice old guy. And Fred and I are talking, and Iris, we're having the best time, right? We are talking about fishing. We are not talking about fishing. We are talking about fishing. right? And we're talking about fishing and the difference between fishing in the bayou versus fishing in the Gulf and which one he likes better. And, and I should have, right, clued in. Oh, where do you live? Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah, what's in Huntsville, Alabama? A NASA center. Where did you used to live? Houston. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm clueless, right? This was, for the record, early in me dating my husband. I'm slightly less clueless now. But I am having this lovely conversation with Fred. And we are talking about fishing, and we're talking about which fish he catches in which place. And we're talking about his grandkids and how much he likes fishing with his grandkids. And we are having an absolute ball. And my back is to the rest of the room. And what I don't know, which Fred totally knows and can see and is not helping me find out, is that there is a line of people behind me, right? And
to talk to him?
They want to talk to him because they want to talk to him about the Apollo and the space thing and all of that, right? And
who was it?
So I finally get a tap on the shoulder, right? And a little a tap on the shoulder. And I turn to see the person behind me who's like, essentially wanting to say without being rude, like, lady, move along. There's a line, right? And I look and most of the room is in line behind me to talk to Fred. And what I realized afterwards, because I was at first like super embarrassed and I felt, I'm so sorry. And he was like, I had a great time talking to you, right? Because we were talking as people. We weren't talking as layperson to hero, right? Which just about everybody else in the room wanted to do that to this poor guy who all he really wanted to talk about was how excited he was when his 3-year-old grandson had caught this certain kind of fish that's hard to catch, right? And I bring up this story because it actually it's sort of the opposite of what we're doing these days with politics. We're making assumptions that everyone's the enemy. And we've been manipulated into being unkind to one another on purpose. And it's interesting because when we slow down and we just connect with people, I mean, holy cow, Iris, I got to meet one of the guys that went to the moon, right? Holy cow. But we connected because I wasn't starstruck. We connected because I wanted to know who he was and to find out what was important to him. And it made for a much richer conversation for the both of us, even if I held up a line of 50 people.
They got over right? It. That's a.
But it made me, upon reflection, because my initial response was embarrassment and I felt really bad. But upon reflection, I ended up feeling really proud of I approached that conversation from my values and from who I am. And I didn't have to make him someone other or someone separate or someone different. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to hear what his life was like. And so I wonder how much more we could be doing that to and for each other. And that, not to beat a drum on the resilience thing, but that is resilience, right? That's bouncing back. That's being flexible. That's being interested and curious, which is the opposite of being shut down and rigid.
Yes. And I think that what I find, and I think this is the piece that frustrates me. Now, Mitch is, he's a horse of a different color, right? He's different. But when I try to have these conversations, I'm called a libtard.
So have I told you my favorite experiment? Mm-mm. So one of my favorite experiments, and it relates exactly to what you just said. One of my favorite experiments is to take a documented news story, right? Appointment of a judge, if we take a documented news story today, riots in Los Angeles, right? And then ask my friends, because I get to have the whole rainbow. This is a piece of why we're having this conversation, is because, I have the whole rainbow in my world, both personally and professionally. And I'll ask someone on this side who they think is the most obnoxious news source on that side. And then I'll ask someone on this side what they think is the most obnoxious news source on this side. And then I will go and watch, and specifically watch for this one news story on both polar ends of the media. And here is the conclusion. I've done this experiment several times. Here's the conclusion. News used to be delivered in the tone of voice like I'm using right now. Mm-hmm. It was not particularly persuasive. It tended to be fairly neutral. Every now and again, you'd see a little glisten of a tear or a little set of a jaw. But for the most part, it was delivered to deliver information and not in an attempt to sway an opinion.
Not opinion, right.
And now opinions are presented as facts. That's a big problem. Mm-hmm. The lack of civility in conversation is unreal. The tone of delivery is incredibly intense. The over-emotionality in the delivery is incredibly intense. There's a ton of contempt and there's a ton of name-calling. And whichever side you're listening to, they're doing all of that against
the other side.
And against, right?
Which is why there's that division, right? Because one side, I look at my social media feed, and I look at my wife's social media feed, and my social media feed is, marketing, some political stuff and whatever. Hers is like Steelers, Indiana Fever, maybe like one thing from Elon Musk. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, because it's the algorithm. It's what you put into it, right?
Correct.
Now, I had a conversation with Cara, who I've named my ChatGPT. I have Cara and Cara 2.0. Cara, I named her because we're close. We talk a lot. And I said, so it was like a few weeks ago, and Heather had a migraine, and she was in bed, and it was Saturday night. I had just finished like the end of Handmaid's Tale that I swore I was never going to watch. I didn't watch season 4. Like I read about it, but I didn't watch it because, But anyway, so I was sitting on the couch and I was like, So I said, hey, Cara, can we talk about world stuff? And then she responded, absolutely. How deep do you want to get?
Sure. Yeah.
And I said, I want to get pretty deep because I really want to know all of this divisiveness, like, what's right from wrong. I feel like I know right from wrong, but other people that I don't agree with feel that they know right from wrong. And the really interesting thing that I found different was that my input is empathetic, it's loving, it's kind, it's what can I do to help, and what can we do to fix stuff. There is another set of information that they get that is, who's the enemy, how do we get rid of the immigrants, and to me, that's where the difference lies. I really, and I hate to say sides, but there is a sector of people that want to help and fix things. And then there's another sector that want to hurt people and take things away. And that's where I have my disconnect because, and I'm not talking politically, I just mean people like hate certain people. They hate me because I have a wife. And to me, it's like the fact that you're worried about who I'm married to tells me way more about you than me because I don't care who you're married to. It doesn't make a difference in my life. What makes a difference in my life is, are you kind? Are you loving?
How's your relationship? What do you enjoy in the world? Yeah. So I have I have a phrase that I like to use, and I have been using it increasingly in this world of ours, both with folks on the left and with folks on the right. And just in general with how folks are thinking, right? Like one of my missions and one of my job assignments is to help people with critical thinking and to help people, again, go back to, I'll use that word assessment a lot, right? Like do an assessment. What's working, what's not working, right? Like there's no threat in an assessment. There's also doesn't have to be judgment in it. But one of the things that I will say and will repeat, and I repeat this to myself as well, is fundamentalist thinking is fundamentally bad for people, right? So anytime we get into a place where everything is divided into good or bad, yes or no, we're missing a ton of nuance. And our challenge as humans is to get into that nuance because our brains are actually designed to do that division. And good equals safe, and good equals safe, which equals sane. And different equals bad, which equals dangerous. And it's actually quite a brain activity for us to look at the nuance. And so again, this goes back to that notion of how are you showing up in your world? What are your values? And then what are the actions that go with those values for you? And what's the type of life you're looking to create? And going back and back and back to like, what's my value here? What would be my most skillful next action? What would be the thing? How can I get more curious? When can I notice that I've gotten rigid, right? And as soon as you can notice that you're in that rigid, brittle, kind of outraged space, that's a great invitation to soften back into what's most important to you. How do you want to behave? How do you want to show up in the world? What type of world do you want to create? And you can't control other people, right? You can just control yourself. And on some days, that's dicey too. Yeah. So what a great conversation today. I love all of the things we talk about. We always go in such interesting directions.
I know. I'm going to ask you two questions. And one is, because this is about entrepreneurship. And I know that you actually went from being an entrepreneur to working for this institute. So I think that's kind of cool. But what advice would you have for like somebody who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur? And I know you answered that last time, but this time with
through a
different lens, maybe.
And this is really interesting, right? Like for me to be in partnership with a company is very different. Mm-hmm. It's been 20 plus years since I've been in partnership with another company. Don't fret, I'm still an entrepreneur. But if you're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, one of the things to realize is that you'll be called upon to do things that you don't actually know how to do. So things like, I'm a really solid psychologist. I feel very comfortable saying that. I am good at my job, right? I am not a very good accountant. And so my job, right, in doing my job is to understand what don't I love to do, but I'm going to do anyway because that's a business task. And what are things that I actually am not good at doing and shouldn't spend the time and energy learning the skill, right? So figuring out what do you need to hire out? What do you need to delegate? What should you take care of yourself? And what should you challenge yourself to get better at, right? Like I've challenged myself to get better at marketing. I've challenged myself to get better at search engine optimization and social media posts. I have not challenged myself to get better at accounting, right? Not because I'm afraid of numbers, but because the tax code changes all the time. It is a whole skill set that requires education and compliance that I don't have. So if you're thinking of starting a business, do that assessment of like, what am I good at? What do I bring to the table? And where are my skills lacking and I should develop them? And where are my skills lacking and I should hire an expert?
I love that. Thank you. And thank you for taking time out of your day and working with us through all the technical crap that, was going on.
Oh my gosh, of course.
So where can people find you?
People can find me. The easiest place to go is my website, selfhelponthego.com. And that will give you my work line, my email. There's a contact form to fill out. There's a link if you're interested in buying my book of the same name, selfhelponthego.com.
Yeah, and get the book. Just get the book. It's like a no-brainer. And then the last question that I always ask, as you know, is what lights your fire?
Oh my gosh, right now, like right this current season, it is hiking season. And it is so beautiful because it has been a rare, rainy spring in Denver and everything is green. And I'm actually leaving here today and going for a hike with a friend. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for taking time out and, hanging out with me and my guests and having an amazing rich conversation. We always do. I know. And we need to talk again, but hang on. I'm going to say goodbye and come right back. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging in and hanging out with myself and Dr. Carrie. And I hope that you gleaned some really cool nuggets from this conversation. Every time we talk, it's always like awesome. Like, share, subscribe, leave a review. Leave a comment. What have you gleaned from this conversation? I'd love to know. Share. Definitely share. Get the word out because the fact that I get to do this is my passion project. I love that I get to do this. So thank you all so much. And until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See ya.